How fun. I'm nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Don't be.
This is kind of fun. So, welcome to the show. Today, I've got Nolan from Belgard with me. I'm Eric with Rising Tide Landscapes, and we just kind of want to have conversations with people in the industry. And quick little tidbit about Nolan. I'm new to having my own business, and he put me right under his wing and said, "Come on, we're going to learn you a thing or two."
We're gonna teach you.
And he's been doing a great job of that. And so I hope to kind of like broach the subject of just like contractor knowledge. The way some companies like Belgard will reach out and kind of partner with and nurture relationships with builders instead of just selling them products. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into the industry? Who's Nolan?
That's a long story. First of all, thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of this. So who is Nolan? So I am a third generation hardscape professional. My father did it before me. My father was a master block maker by trade.
Actually making the blocks.
So yes and no. He was a operations manager for a hardscapes plant. So my grandfather owned a manufacturing facility where they made retaining walls and pavers for, I think it was like 40 years or something like that.
Awesome.
So my grandfather owned it. My grandfather actually invented soft split, which is a way that retaining walls were manufactured for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So then my dad ran a plant. So there's a lot of family ties to the hardscapes industry. I had nothing to do with that. I never worked for the family business. There was a lot of my grandfather had a very firm standing on my grandchildren aren't going to work for the family business because somebody's going to give them a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had the opportunity to. So my career started in hardscapes back in 2017 when I got a phone call from a local Belgard rep.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Hey man, I got the approval to hire somebody new. You're a new guy." I'm
okay.
Like, cool. I don't know anything about hardscapes.
How'd you know this guy?
Yeah. So my dad, after my family had closed down the manufacturing plant back in 2009, they closed it down.
Okay.
They weren't manufacturing material anymore. My dad decided to open up a distribution yard selling hardscape materials to contractors, kind of like where you go to get your materials is what my father was doing on a very small end. But the company that I was working for at the time was renting a building from my father, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So there was two businesses in one building.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a turf company where I was driving a semi truck for this turf company. And every once in a while I'd have to run over to the Belgard plant and pick up, a truckload of pavers or a truckload of wall because my dad had sold them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would deliver them to the contractors. Okay. So I got to know the Belgard rep. We had gone golfing a few times. But he called me up and said, "Hey, you're our new rep." I'm like, "Thanks, but no thanks." I enjoy driving a semi truck. I'm fine on my own.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation happened 3 times.
Wow, persistence pays
off. Yeah, so I finally said, "Okay, let's give it a shot."
Mm-hmm.
It was my girlfriend, who's now my wife.
Mm-hmm.
It was all her. Hey, why don't you give it a shot? For me, it was one of those God moments.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason that he should have called me, but I got the phone call and she was like, "Yeah, well, give it a shot." So
how fun.
Got into that. I'll never forget the first interaction that I had with a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
We had launched a brand new product. This was like a week into my career with Belgard.
Yeah.
We had launched Sterling Wall.
Okay.
Sterling Wall was an SRW system, pin system. We had these foam mock-ups.
SRW, what's that for everybody listening?
Segmental retaining wall.
Okay.
Split face, 6-inch tall unit. But we were doing this product validation with these contractors. It was closed room, couldn't talk about it, top secret information.
Okay.
But I had asked the contractor just this, I asked him a question and he must have thought what is this guy doing here? And why does he have
new
a
kid
job?
vibes?
Yeah, total new kid vibes. So I think the question had something I remember it had to do with segmental retaining wall,
Mhm.
and freestanding walls.
Mhm.
And I thought that SRW stood for seated retaining wall.
Mhm.
That's not what it stands for, but that's the way that I referenced it. And I remember him, like I still have a great friendship
Mhm.
with the contractor that I asked the question to. We've ridden motorcycles together, and
That's hilarious.
but it just goes to show you, like, no, like you can put anything into what you're doing, and it'll turn into something if you pursue it hard enough.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, one of my better relationships was with a guy. I used to be a contractor salesman and sell to contractors. And it took me, I think, 5 trips and a lot of Starbucks and donuts before he would even talk to me. But then, no, we ended up, doing the same thing, kind of going fishing together, golfing together. So it's fun to hear, building relationships is still alive,
yes.
Especially in the modern era. Can you tell me a little bit about that building relationships? It was great to kind of, get brought in and have you kind of usher me around the Valley. What are some things that you as a Belgard rep do in terms of teaching, training, educating? Like, tell me more about that.
So my role with Belgard, we'll backtrack just a little bit briefly, set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Belgard sales representative in Wisconsin for 6 years.
Okay.
Put in for a transfer to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
That came through. So I moved to Arizona as a Belgard sales representative. In January of 24, I stepped into the contractor development role.
Wow, that's not long. You were killing it. This is
I
good.
mean, it was fun. I'll always have a spot in my heart for sales because
Mm-hmm.
I love doing that. Like I love the drive of sales, the fast pace.
And it's fun.
But the education aspect is what I'm really passionate about. I want the contractors that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be profitable. I want
Mm-hmm.
you guys to be able to run a successful business and have your business last for decades. Far too often in the hardscape industry, we see like these, we refer to them as chucking a truck.
Mm-hmm.
And you see them everywhere. They come, they go, they mess up the industry.
Mm-hmm.
They're charging, low prices to get
Mhm.
something done. They don't always know what they're doing, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't do it the right way. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the industry a service by educating the contractors that want to learn,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can make more money and they can be around forever.
I think all your efforts to just like the 401k, putting a little bit in over time, or, a couple days in the gym, big deal. 100 days in the gym, you'll start to see results. I just stole that from somebody. Saw that recently. Credit where credit's due. But I just wanted to bid yesterday. Guy called me. Somebody's been at his house since last February. And it's got about 200 square feet of pavers and a wonky fireplace built, so not licensed, not bonded, not insured. This guy has minimal recourse.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're a big fan. I'm a big fan of licensed, bonded, insured. It helps the customer out in the end. It helps me
absolutely.
out having a third party to kind of, get through some gray areas like the ROC helps out. Tell me more about that too, in reference to what you're getting at.
I'm still learning a lot about, the license bonded insured, the ROC for Arizona. Like, coming from the Midwest, that's not we don't have that back there. You don't have that on the East Coast.
Who's kind of like a third party or somebody that's like maybe watching the watchers or something out there?
You're held accountable to your own to the own standards.
Okay.
Like you're an insured business. You have to register your company.
Okay.
You're a registered company, so to speak. Like I can only speak for Wisconsin. I would assume that the Midwest is very similar, but you don't have to pay all of these fees to be a business like you do here in Arizona. So I get it. Like there's a cost associated with that to have the people to go in and make sure that everything is being done right. But as far as like the education to the contractors, backtracking a little bit, like just making sure that, we have all of these products. Like there's so many different things. Like you've been to a couple of them.
Yeah.
We've done these trainings we did the Grill Island training.
That was cool.
We've done a segmented retaining wall training. Like, so when you drive around the Valley, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is everything looks the same no matter where you go.
If you're on social and you're scrolling, like every single yard is like squares going to a bigger square.
The steppers and the turf
all the
and
same
the stucco.
product.
And
Not that that's
it's
horrible.
not-
I get it.
there's
It's a
nothing wrong
Southwest
with
vibe,
it.
but I think there's a lot of room for a little bit more diversity.
There's nothing wrong with having a trend that works in an environment. Like we look at like Cambridge cobble, pillow top pavers. I'm convinced that Arizona and Florida are the only two places in the country that sell that product.
I think you've got some data to support your hunch.
For what reason? Like
Yeah.
it's just because it's cheap. I doubt that. It's because contractors are creatures of habit and they don't necessarily want to change because it's what they know. So let's just stick with it.
Amen.
So again, back to the education is we have Belgard has all of these products. How do we use them? And if you don't know how to use them, like don't be afraid to ask questions about, hey, how do I install this? And I walked into a distributor yesterday and I gave them that presentation that I gave you on Grill Islands in about 15 minutes. And it blew their minds. Like we have products out there that you can make more money on. The homeowner can have a completely different yard than their next door neighbor. And they really didn't pay all that much more compared to what their neighbor has. And the distributors are going to love it because they're making their margins on it too.
Yeah. No, there's kind of more than one way to skin a cat. Like when you go through your catalog, like I've worked at several places in the Valley and it's kind of the same everywhere. Hey, we're doing this is what we're doing. You guys have so many different products and different looks. I definitely want to be challenged and get better on the design angle. And I know some of my partners that I work with are pretty good at that too. But don't you guys have some tools too to kind of help with that, or maybe some visuals for different looks and ways to integrate your product outside of me just picking up the phone and calling you, which I love. I'm able to do that.
Easy access.
Yeah, but I've definitely had fun going, hey, what if we use this here? What if we did this here? Could we inlay this? How's this going to look?
Thinking outside the box.
Trying to.
I love that tagline. And I try to use it on the social medias, like hashtag think outside the box, because
I will mark that and use it.
I feel like it's if somebody sees that, or if a contractor sees that, like they have to acknowledge that they read that and think, oh, well, maybe there is something that I can do just a little bit different than what the norm is, and maybe it'll start a new trend. I mean, how are trends started anyway? Somebody just thinks something off the wall and they rock with it. I mean,
they're passionate about it, and then all of a sudden somebody else is passionate about it. Yeah,
that's how that kind of stuff just it adds on. So I think that's a really important thing for the hardscape industry, specifically in the Southwest, to learn new products, think outside the box, and lean on partners, because there's so much room for opportunity here compared to other parts of the country that are, I was talking to some guys in Chicago that are like struggling for work.
Yikes.
They're in the part of the season where it's just like, my phone hasn't rang in 2 weeks. I don't have a $250,000 project on the books anymore. Like, I'm going to be lucky if I can get, 3 crews work next week. Whereas Arizona is completely opposite. We're working year round. There's always projects.
There's a lot of work out here.
You might see some dips here and there, but it's not as extreme as the other markets. So again, like, that's why I think that trends tend to not change, because we're so focused on the here and now and just getting something done versus how can we push the envelope a little bit to create something new. If we worked 8 months out of the year, you're still going to have those couple extra months where you could think of something to do versus working 12 months consistently and not having 5 minutes to stop and think about what's the next step.
I think you hit something there. If you're not kind of diligent about your day is going to take you over. It's the same in design and anything else. So what are some trends that maybe you've seen in other parts of the country, or you think you've seen maybe a couple guys do that you think, maybe might catch on here? Like I alluded to, just an inlay. Is there anything else that you guys are seeing that, maybe a new paver or something you want to promote as like, guys, check this out?
I think that's a rabbit hole in and of itself. We could we could talk an hour just about the different design trends. But the few that I will bring up, you did mention the inlays. Inlays are such an easy piece to add to any outdoor living project that are overlooked consistently because
I'm so guilty. So
it's all good, man. Again, because we get caught in
Mhm.
just the day-to-day stuff. Whereas if we stop and we look at a project, the majority of these projects out here are 1,200 square feet.
Yep.
I mean,
About right.
consistently.
Yep.
That leaves you more than enough space to do some sort of, I call it a rug. People call it an inlay.
I like that.
Where you can incorporate a different pattern, a different texture, a different style of paver.
Mhm.
And it's not really going to cost the homeowner anything extra
Mhm.
other than a little bit of labor because
Mhm.
you've got to make a few extra cuts. If you're going to lay it on a 45
Yeah.
with some sort of 6x9 or banding of some sort around
Mhm.
that. So that's another thing that I would love to see. It's starting to take over more now. I think
Are there areas where you're seeing it more, like out west, up north?
I'm seeing more of the banding like up in the Prescott area.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
starting to see like contrasting borders,
Fun.
like a graphite border.
Okay.
You get into some of this track home stuff, and the
Mhm.
6x9 border is it's the same color as the
Mhm.
driveway, or
Mhm.
it's the same color as the patio.
Yeah, I would like to get better about that myself. I like
we
it.
We just brought in some new materials that we're stocking here in Arizona. It's called the Brooklyn paver. It's a 6x9 or 3x9 texture.
Bro.
So it's and we've got it in like, I think we're stocking it in 2 colors.
Okay, show me
It's
this.
like a maroon and a midnight.
Okay.
But it's something completely different that you can use as an accent paver. We've got 2 projects one in Prescott, one in Scottsdale,
Okay.
where they use that specific accent paver as a border around the driveway.
I love that.
Something so simple that just it adds some curb appeal to the project, and it doesn't really cost that much more money. You're going to mortar set your 6x9 anyway. What's the difference between the 6x9 and the 3x9 if you've got to do the process anyway?
I love it. I think that's fantastic.
The other trend that I've seen East Coast, Midwest, we talk about fire features and barbecues. And when it comes to outdoor living structures, and this is exactly why I did that training that we did a couple of weeks ago.
That barbecue went up so quick.
It's just so that contractors understand that we don't have to do everything out of CMU and veneer. It's a great product. We love selling CMU.
Sure.
We're known for making it. But when we've got, 13 different wall products that you could build a barbecue or a fire feature or some sort of seating out of, and it takes you less time to install it, then you win, the homeowner wins, Belgard wins, the distributor wins. It's the perfect scenario for everybody, other than having the same thing that everybody has in their backyard. So I think those are the 3 things that I would really like to see.
So more banding,
more bandings, inlays,
same thing.
More contrasting colors and accents, and more outdoor structures.
Just kind of like, I do love your product, even if not, I think the first time I'm going to probably use it is going to be as a planter.
Okay.
I think it's the perfect size and vibe for a planter. So I'm probably going to start there and kind of like cut my teeth at that. What is it? 18 by 36?
Oh, the Art Forms?
The Art Forms.
The Art Forms panel system is, man, that's next level stuff. Like when they came out with that, it blew everybody's mind. We're like, holy cow. Like, this is one piece and you can do all this different stuff with it. I remember it was 2022. Would have been March of 22. We did a trade show in Chicago. We built an outdoor office.
Ooh, cool.
It was an indoor office because it was an indoor trade show.
Outdoor.
We built an outdoor living space inside. We built a 20 by 30 outdoor living space, and we built an office out of Art Forms.
Dang.
And it turned out, I'll have to show you photos of it.
Don't go building walls out of that though, right?
No, Art Forms is not designed to be a retaining wall of any sort. You could use it as like cladding if you wanted to. Okay. But as far as it like having any sort of structurability when you're retaining anything, that's not going to happen.
Right. So barbecues and such. I think I proposed the idea. I was like, hey, this is cool. Can I do an outdoor shower? And you're like, it might get a little high for that, I mean, like you have some restrictions with it. Right?
There's some height restrictions with it. I'm sure where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay.
I'm very proud to say that, with that tandem wall system, some contractors and I have really pushed the limits of what that product was supposed to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when we showed the R&D team at Belgard, hey, we did this with tandem wall, they were like, wait, you did what? And
I like that you're an ask for forgiveness kind of guy.
we showed them all of the construction details that we went about to do it, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that actually works.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure somebody's going to push the limits with art forms at some point,
Yeah.
and I'm all about it.
Yeah, I love the look of it.
We just got to be very, very careful with it so that nobody gets hurt, obviously.
Yeah, that's what we all want for sure. What's one big change in the industry you would like to see or spearhead or be a proponent of maybe in this area?
In this area. So this is going to be a selfish plug.
Let's go.
The gentleman that's coming for Belgard U,
Mm-hmm.
Weston from Synced Up.
Okay. Are there spots open for that? Is this a plug that?
Belgard University is
Okay.
open to every contractor in the valley.
Okay.
It's Belgard University is something that we do that Belgard does nationally every year in
Mhm.
every different market where
Okay.
they offer Belgard.
Okay.
It's a one-day event. It's come and learn about, what Belgard's doing, what's available, what kind of help can contractors get for the industry, what kind of knowledge,
Fantastic.
teaching you guys more about what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I love it.
So the gentleman that we're bringing in this year, he owns a business called Synced Up.
Okay.
So when we talk about running a hardscape business, there's or a landscape business for that
Mhm.
matter, whether it's hardscapes, softscapes, maintenance, there's all of these different platforms that you can use to run your business.
Sure.
So what Synced Up does is Synced Up teaches you how to know your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a platform where you plug in all of your data.
What are those?
What
No,
are
I'm
your
just
numbers?
kidding. I'm joking. No.
We'll talk about it,
Yeah.
but the cost of the material, the cost of
Mhm.
labor, your overhead, your equipment costs,
Mhm.
all of these different things you plug into this software,
Mhm.
and it's going to tell you what you need to charge each job at a minimum.
Mhm.
Like what's your break even number?
Yeah.
And then you get to add in your margin from there.
Love it.
So I think
That's
that
clean.
for me, that's what I want to see. The
The
Arizona
business side of things.
Yes.
Dude, so I sold to contractors, like I said, for 14, 15 years, and there was two guys. There was the craftsman and there was the businessman.
Yes.
But what there was rarely was this guy. And when you found him, he was doing pretty good. Because there's good, you can make a good living in this trade,
Mhm.
especially if you do things that are above board and you're looking way out there. One of the things that I'm going with is a 5-year workmanship warranty. And a lot of people are like, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm
Absolutely.
like, I absolutely do, because the Arizona standard's 2 years and 5 years is not that long.
To your point about the 5-year warranty, I had a conversation with Alex about this
Mhm.
not too long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on board with this. I would love to get to a point where we have a flyer for homeowners. So every
Okay.
time you go to meet with a homeowner,
Mm-hmm.
you leave them this flyer. Hey, you go through your spiel about, this is what we'll do. This is what
Mhm.
our proposal is. This is what it costs. And you walk them through the project.
Okay.
And that's all great. That's you doing your job. But at the end of it, going above and beyond and saying, hey, look, I appreciate your time. If you don't go with us, and we respect your right to not do that, here's a list of 10 questions that you should interview your next contractor.
Mm.
Here's what you should ask them.
Mhm.
Here are the proper answers. And if that contractor answers any of these questions wrong,
Mhm.
that's going to be a red flag for you. And
Mhm.
if you have any questions, call me and I'll help walk you through that. I understand that,
Mhm.
we might not be the company for you and we might be out of your budget range,
Mm-hmm.
but we at least want to make sure that you're getting the proper knowledge and that you're not getting duped by somebody else. So here's your 10 questions.
That is fascinating. So my failed business before this business was toe-to-toe bids. And I essentially wanted to be a third party that came in alongside the homeowner and helped them interview their 3 contractors. So I'm all about this.
Yes.
We could rap about this later and maybe make that a reality. That's fun. Even just to build up the industry,
Yeah.
so that this guy that I went, this poor guy yesterday, didn't know any better. And February of last year, his project got started and it's still not done.
It's the accountability thing. And that's what that's bringing the ROC into the conversation.
Mhm.
Is the ROC is trying to, they're in your corner. They're there to protect you, but there's also an accountability thing.
Mhm.
And what I'm learning as, and this is not to offend anybody, but I'm learning that sometimes accountability to grown men is a tough topic, and I'm guilty of it myself. Like, I don't want my wife to hold me accountable to some things.
We all are, yeah.
I think we all kind of want that. We want that get out of jail free card, and I think that in the hardscape industry, that tends to get put under a microscope often, where it's the second that somebody holds us accountable, our tendency is to, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Backlash.
Instead of, hey, well, let's figure it out.
Exactly.
I had one we just finished up. She texted me Monday morning at 6:00 and was like, is this supposed to be this way? And I was like, well, that's what we talked about, but do you want to see it something different? Let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation about it instead of like, well, yeah, it was. That's what we're doing. Duh. It's like, hey, let's look at it.
Grace. There's a lot of grace in what we do for specific people, and sometimes that point gets missed.
Yeah. What can you tell maybe homeowners or customers that are watching this about, I guess not maybe your competition so much as some products that you guys really shine at, or maybe what are some things people wouldn't know Belgard's got? Like when I went to that training with you, I was like, oh, tile, great. What is there anything else that's like, aren't you guys getting into lighting and like the whole Monty now?
So Belgard, when we think about Belgard, I'll give you like the elevator pitch for Belgard.
Yeah.
So Belgard's owned by Old Castle.
Okay.
Old Castle is the largest building manufacturer in the country. So when it comes to the outdoor living space, our new tagline is "Live well outside."
What was your old tagline?
Belgard paves the way.
I love it. Okay.
But this live well outside, the idea is to own the backyard. When we get into these outdoor living spaces, there's so many studies, and if you look up, here's another plug. If you look up Joe Raboyne is our director of design, I think is his title.
Okay.
He's got his own podcast through Belgard, but there's so many studies that have been done about how outdoor living just increases our well-being.
I would totally buy that.
And there's collegiate studies about it, and Joe's got a great podcast on just how living well outside is so beneficial for us. So again, living well outside.
Okay.
But we've got Old Castle is the mothership, the parent company. Yeah. Under that is Belgard, which is, the concrete pavers and retaining walls. You've got Echelon, which is our masonry line. Okay. All of your 8816, your CMU type stuff, like all of the finished products.
Utility stuff.
Yeah. We do a lot of specialty masonry items, the split face with the different colors, and you can get honed and burnished and all this other stuff. Then we've got Sacrete. Okay. We own Sacrete. Wow. We own Amerimix.
Okay.
Barrette Outdoor Living, which is pergolas, screenings, railing systems.
Nationwide on that?
Nationwide on that.
Okay. I have not heard of that yet.
That was an acquisition back in 21, I think it was.
Okay.
Moisture Shield composite decking. Okay. There's a huge project down here in Tempe where they did a boatload of Moisture Shield composite decking. Pebble Tech. We own Pebble Tech, your pool finish company.
Okay.
So when it comes to, your live well outside, we want to own the backyard.
You guys are all in on this.
We're all in on the backyard and just making outdoor living spaces just a better place for people to be. I mean, think about it. That's where you create relationships with your family, relationships with friends.
You play,
you cook, you have a few drinks. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And Arizona is such a great space for that too. Like that's why I'm here. Right.
You get plenty of vitamin D here. That is for sure. That was probably one of the biggest differences when we moved here is, we wanted to have a pool. Yeah. I said, we're going to move to Arizona. We've got to have a pool.
Okay.
Like I'm not living in Arizona without one.
Curious to see how this works out.
And I don't know how I would do it without one.
Okay.
I love my pool. I love being outside in the backyard, even though it's hot and we kind of keep the little kids inside. But
do you feel like there's pool weather? Like for me, it's like I'm only in the pool like at certain times, and I feel like my blood's thinned. If it's below 90, I'm not interested. Like I want to be out. I don't know about you, but I want to be out there like when it's really hot or not at all.
I use mine for cold plunge, even though
Oh.
it's not quite cold enough for a cold plunge. Like
I did that for a minute.
I tried it this year and I did it every day until the water changed, till the temperature got too warm for me to use it for a cold plunge.
Nice.
So for me being from the Midwest, every day is pool day.
Did you start to kind of like crave the cold plunge? I did it for about a month, and it was like I started. I don't even know why I stopped, but was it just kind of like, yeah, okay, I got a cold plunge coming today?
The first time I did it, I had a hard time making it past a minute 30.
Yeah.
By the time that I was done, I was up to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I wanted to be in the cold water because I felt completely relaxed and like just the way that it.
There's something there.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of smarter guys would tell you that.
Yep, I agree.
What do you think are some pitfalls? What are some things that you would say, okay, just don't go down this road for maybe a newer company or maybe somebody that wants to get into the industry, or maybe it's an installer. Maybe what should installers be looking out for, or new companies, or pitfalls?
It's a little bit of a loaded question. I want to tread very lightly.
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
I there's a lot of differences. I think the biggest one. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Maybe
the biggest one is quarter minus.
Yes,
that's the biggest one.
Let's stay here for the rest of our podcast because I've, like I said, I've worked for a few companies since I landed here. I've seen other people's work. I've seen other people's bids, many of them, and I don't want to say everybody because I don't do that, but most people are putting down most pavers over compacted quarter minus.
Yes.
Educate me.
Again, I don't know everything.
Fair.
I'm going to preface it with that. What I can tell you is that I've done some of my own homework, and I'll give you the homework that
you guys have some specs though too.
So we don't have specs.
Okay.
The only spec that Belgard releases is in order to uphold the lifetime Belgard warranty.
Here we go. That's what I mean.
So it has to be installed per CMHA specifications.
Okay. Break it down.
CMHA is now a joint group of what was ICPI and NCMA.
Okay.
NCMA was more of the retaining walls. So any of your vertical applications, and ICPI was more of your horizontal.
These acronyms just mean basically training centers, certifications.
So
right?
No different than like an electrician has to go through their certification. A plumber has to go through theirs. Like concrete masonry.
So what are they saying? What
they are saying that basically the classification for quarter minus is it's classified as stone dust.
Okay.
And I believe it's like 75 or 95. I don't remember off the top of my head what the number is. But basically anything that passes through the 200 sieve size on a sieve analysis is considered stone dust.
Getting in the weeds. I love it.
I think it's like 95% of quarter minus passes through that number 200 sieve.
Okay.
So basically what's happening, and this is totally nerding out, when moisture gets into the quarter minus, that moisture doesn't percolate through it like it would with your sand layer or your ABC. Yeah, you've got fines in there, but they're more rigid fines than they are with quarter minus. Quarter minus acts like a sponge.
Okay.
And it just soaks everything up. So none of that water is able to go back into the surface.
Okay.
When it's held in that quarter minus and wants to come back up through the surface,
you are going to ruffle some feathers.
I'm going to ruffle some feathers.
So tell me then, the perfect install is what? You're excavating a certain, maybe not perfect. Maybe not perfect. So an above board, like you could go and see this and be like, look, that was a good job, because I know there's, a pretty good spec for driveways, but then, patio in the back of the house, like.
I like it right between the two. If it's me, if I have my own contracting business and I'm going to go install an outdoor living space or a driveway, I'm going to go with 8 inches of AB and an inch of sand.
Okay.
And that might be overkill.
So you're 9 inches plus a 2-inch paver.
Yep.
So below finished grade, you're down 11 inches.
Correct.
Wow.
Typically it would be like coming from the Midwest, it's typical 12 to 18.
And I get that.
Industry minimum, no matter where you go for CMHA spec is 4 to 1.
Okay.
So it's 4 inches of AB, 1 inch of sand.
Okay.
That's minimum.
Okay.
I know that there's a handful contractors that do like for their driveways, they'll do 6 to 8.
Yep.
They say 6
when
to
I've
8,
done
but
them,
it's
I would
probably
do
like 5.5.
honestly, driveways are where I'll go overkill. I'll go 8
Yeah.
inches of AB and then pavers, a little bit of sand for bedding.
Mhm.
But in the back, we're just not doing it. And I think I could probably find a handful of contractors that are doing the AB to the depth requirement that you are suggesting. Help me maybe, like, is there any disconnect between regions, right? Like, I know we've got like caliche soil out here, and we've got it's arid, right? When it rains, it rains. But like, does that play in at all to like why? Because I feel like I've been in a lot of backyards since I've been here. I've been selling 2 appointments a day since I got here, and I see some pavers that are they need to be reset or replaced even, and then some that's just like, what happened here? Did we have a frisbee-a-thon with these? But for the most part, I see a lot of stuff that seems to be holding up. So I'm not trying to push back too hard, but like,
hey, pushback is great because that's where we grow.
Yeah, is there a happy medium maybe where maybe there might be a different spec for a different region like ours?
There is a happy medium, and I'm gonna say what it is. I don't agree with it, and
Fair.
that's okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna push super heavy on the guys that are doing it this way because
might be me.
I can understand the thought process, and I'm not, even though it's not CMHA specification, I can understand why they're doing it. Open graded base isn't CMHA approved, and that's all I want guys to do.
No, that's a whole nother.
Open graded base is a whole nother conversation. I got guys doing it up in Prescott, and they'll never switch to dense graded base ever again.
Okay.
But the happy medium is ABC quarter minus mix.
Okay.
And I'm seeing guys do that. They're doing the ABC as your sub base and then using your quarter minus as your bedding layer.
Kind of like that.
And the reason I don't like that,
oh crap,
it's okay. I understand why they're doing it, and here's the scientific reason why is when you go to compact your pavers after you've got the whole project done,
your ABC down,
you've got your bedding, you've got your pavers. Now you're putting your sand in, and you've got to compact those pavers down into your bedding cores. The quarter minus is 2 course that it's not going to go into the joints from the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I thought they were doing a layer of AB, a layer of quarter minus, both compacted, and then a bedding sand. They're using the quarter minus as a bedding loose. Is that right?
That way, and mixing it in with their AB.
Oh, okay.
So using that quarter minus as that bedding layer, it's not getting up. It's not getting up in the joints. There's really no.
What's the point?
Structurability to that bedding layer there. And then you get if you do get moisture from the monsoons that we get, now you're just asking for even more problems.
So we've gone technical. So to tell this back to you, AB is the preferred choice, and just AB and bedding sand, compact that in, you're happy. We've still got kind of another level to a correct paver install, I think, and that would be polymeric or polysweep, or it's all got different names depending on the brand.
Yep.
The idea behind this component is that it is adhesive in nature, and you get it in between the joints, and then you sweep it off, and then you spray it down. The water activates the chemicals. It then hardens and forms a solid interlock. Is that a pretty fair?
Yes, that's a great way to explain it.
Okay, so not something everybody's doing. A lot of guys are just using, hopefully not silica. Some guys are using silica, but a lot of guys are using mason sand to sweep their pavers when they're done because it's a little bit coarser sand, and they're calling that a day. Maybe give me anything you've got on polymeric, polysweep, why maybe guys aren't.
So I'll preface it with this. The mason sand in the joints, the mason sand, whatever you can use that as your bedding layer and as your joint material. Per CMHA specification, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
When we get into the polymeric sands, it's added integrity. And the reason that I've found here that lesser people are doing it is it's just the cost associated with it. I have one contractor that has equated it to you have to add $1 a square foot for polymeric sand.
I think that's probably about right.
And
maybe a little less.
For me, going back to that handout, I don't see an issue with charging an extra $1. If the homeowner can understand the benefit of having polymeric sand, we're reducing ants. We're reducing weeds. We're adding integrity to the structure. When you get into the mason sand in your joints, say it rains and it washes all that sand out of your joints,
Can happen.
now there's no interlock there. I mean, it's working as a buffer for that pavement to be flexible. But if there's no sand there, now they're rubbing on each other, and now it's just going away. So that's where the polymeric sand adds some added value to the integrity of the surface. And it's cheap insurance. I mean, we're talking about a 5-year, you know, workmanship.
Yeah.
You throw polymeric sand on there, you may be able to put a few extra bucks in your pocket on the project by adding the polymeric sand, and you're gonna. I'm not going to say increase.
The cost will go up,
decrease you were going to decrease the opportunity for a callback even more.
I love that, and I think that I'm already not the cheapest guy, and it's totally fine with me because I've got a lights out crew that takes their time. We're not going to get in and out of there in a day. Some crews can do that. I do think that there is, like, at some point there's only so much you can add on, right? You know, or you know, if a backyard is X amount of dollars, let's say 30,000, and then they want, you know, a pergola and they want a barbecue. Well, if we've done, you know, pet infill in the turf, and we then add polymeric on, you know, 1,500 square feet, and it's $1 a foot, and the pet infill's $1 a foot, and we did 1,500 feet, there's $3,000 there. So I can see the real side of things for homeowners going, hey, if we don't do this and this for this $3,000, I get my barbecue or whatever it is too. So I think that's something I need to work on too, is being able to incorporate all the elements by maybe, you know, resizing or reshaping things to go, we need this, we need that. What can we do different to make it happen?
Well, there's so many things that you can do with the design of it too, to make that work. Like, so you cut off, like, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, if there's a specific area that just doesn't quite flow right, and you completely X that off the project, now you've made room for something else. Yeah,
no, these are great points. What do you think are possible? What do you think are possible avenues for somebody like myself to kind of partner with Belgard on a lot of different levels? You've got Belgard U, and there's some certifications. Tell me more. You know, we've only hung out a couple times, but I know there's different avenues. Like, I can become a certified Belgard contractor. There's Belgard U, and then I think you guys even have design software. Like you guys really have a lot to offer the contractor. Help me, you know, this is a plug for you because I think you guys have been great to me so far. So help me help you entice other contractors into some of maybe the perks of working with Belgard.
Sure. So the start of that is starting a relationship with your Belgard rep. You know, there's 5 of us in the Valley. There's Christine handles Mesa in the East Valley. Jen handles the West Valley, up to Kingman and Havasu. Eddie handles South Tucson, Casa Grande, and then I cover, you know, North Phoenix, Scottsdale, Prescott, and then Kelly covers New Mexico and like Sedona in that area. But it's just the first steps is establishing a relationship with your Belgard rep and understanding that they're not always there to sell you something. They're there, like, That's
been the refreshing part of our relationship. You don't know how many phone calls I've got. Bro, buy my stuff. You know, like, how did you find me? I've been in business for 3 months. Like, what are we doing here? Why can't the customers do that? No.
All of my coworkers have the same mindset. Is like,
I love it.
Let's educate and help these contractors grow their business first, and then, you know, the sales tag on it. It's part of having a relationship. Contractors buy from people that they like doing business with. So
who make it easy and not weird.
Yep, exactly. Like, we went to a Diamondbacks game. Like, that's the kind of stuff like that just ties all of that together. So, you know, to your point is we have Belgard Design Studio. We have the authorized contractor program. If you become an authorized contractor, it's, hey, we want 10 projects that you install that are Belgard projects that you've installed to specification.
We're almost there.
Where, and then with those 10 projects, then you get access to free design studio. We do free 3D renderings.
That's fantastic.
You have access to financing. If you have a homeowner that's just a little bit more price conscious than somebody else, they can finance their project.
They want a little bit more now.
Exactly.
Want to pay for it over time.
Yep.
Okay.
You get your name on the website. As an authorized contractor, which leads to leads.
Amen.
People can go to the website and they can punch in their zip code and they'll tell you who the closest contractor is to their location.
Okay, that's powerful. I like
that's
that.
very powerful. That's free networking.
That's why we're doing
there.
it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the other the contractor rewards program?
Okay.
Everybody's kind of got one right now.
Yeah.
I'll use this as a plug because I think it's a great story.
Okay.
I have a contractor that services the Prescott market that bought his entire family Christmas presents off of all of the points that he had. He didn't have to spend a dime.
Can't believe you're selling him out right now.
Hey, there's nothing wrong.
No, I
love it. And he'll tell you too, it's such a great program because it's the dude bought for 5 Samsung 80-inch TVs because he had points to burn up. So it's just
I need in on this. Yeah.
Everything, once you become an authorized contractor, you get 2 times the points.
Cool.
Every Belgard purchase that you make goes into a bucket of points. When you become a master craftsman, you get 5 times the points.
Oh, let's go.
So the master craftsman that's one of those things it's not unobtainable. It's just
a few years down the road.
You've got to be installing our pre-built fireplaces. You've got to be installing porcelain pavers. There's a whole lot of other things that go into
partnership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
100%. So, but for me, going back to the original question it's the education piece. Like I said at the beginning of this, anybody that I'm working with, I want my contractors to be very profitable. I want you guys to make money and live a lifestyle far greater than mine. Just because I'm passionate about it, and where that comes from is a place of love and passion is knowing what my grandfather did for the industry, knowing what my father did, and that trying to carry on that legacy. I
love it.
I would be hard pressed to find an individual that would speak anything poorly about my grandfather just because he was a very, very kind man.
Awesome.
And I want to be able to give back that same mindset to the people that I work with. I care about you guys. I care about your business, and I want to see you guys do well. Even if it doesn't benefit me, if it's just me giving you the proper information on how to do something the right way, then my job is done.
Yeah, I love it.
So that's what it means to be partnered with us, at least for this team here in Arizona. Same thing. I can say the exact same thing for the team back in the Midwest because I've been on that team.
Sure.
And I know how all of those guys function, but Belgard's a family, and we want to be a family with our contractors and our customers that are loyal to us, that are continuously using our products, pushing the limits, thinking outside the box, because that's what really moves the needle for the industry. And that's what makes us passionate about what we do is we're moving the needle. Our customers are moving the needle. We're all moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
I love it. And before you know it, that needle's way out there, and you can look back and really go, "Wow,
yeah,
what an impact!" That's fun.
I mean, you look at some of these contractors that are on social media that have just blown their business up in good ways or in bad ways.
Yeah, sure.
You see people that are all over social media, but they do junk work. But then you see some of these guys that are kind of flying under the radar on social media that are just doing these killer
I've seen
projects.
Some guys in town that are slaying it. It is fantastic to see their work. I appreciate good work. You know, it's a wonderful thing to see.
I was listening as we were walking in here and talking about the different things that we can put in the room, and artwork is essentially what you do. You are an artist. And I love the fact that you're not the cheapest guy in town, because the artwork that you're providing is providing somebody a better lifestyle. This is art at its core.
You're hired.
And the more that we can push those boundaries of what artwork can do. You see some of these inlays where people are cutting mountains in and using dot lights to make it look like stars on a horizontal surface. There's the possibilities are endless in our world.
It's like I tell my wife, it's just money.
It's just money. I think about like the projects that I want to do at my house. Like the first thing I want to do is install an outdoor living space. But like, what can I see all of these things from all over the country that I want to put, I want to incorporate into my outdoor living space.
I so want to help you design that.
How do we get that to the customers?
To design your backyard.
We're going to have a whole crew of people there. I had somebody else ask, he's like, hey, why didn't you do a porcelain pool deck? I'm like, dude, I'm not made out of money.
At some point, right? Like we have our limits here.
Exactly. But like just seeing like all the different aspects and seeing all of these different designs and all of these different trends from across the country, that is something that I would really push on hardscape contractors in Arizona is get connected to contractors from other markets. Arizona has a very unique style of outdoor living space.
For sure.
But there's no reason that can't be broadened.
I think if we take some elements of commercial and kind of drag them into the residential space, as well as like, I mean, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. There's nothing I love more than to see like kind of mountains cut in or a little bit more grasses. Like, I feel like there's a lot of elements that is just like, okay, aloe vera, squares, turf, on to the next. I've done it. I do those, right? It's fine. It's totally fine. But it's always a little bit more fun. I think for everybody, when you get on a project where you open up the plans, you're like, oh, wow, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yep.
I just had, it's in bid form. I hope to win it, but it is a fantastic design that somebody on Fiverr did, and it almost made me think, you know what? They're not here. They don't know what we usually do.
Yeah.
That's why I got this really killer design.
Because it's providing a different perspective
100%.
To the outdoor living space. And you and I could go to the same project and do a design for a homeowner, and those designs will be completely different.
Just
because
did that with my buddy.
Everybody's brain works a little bit differently. Yeah. And that's why I say is like there's so many forums out there.
That's the hard part about design. It's won and lost me jobs. On one job, I win because I'm different. On the other job, I lose because I didn't listen to every exact detail. And maybe I threw a little twist at him that I thought would be cool. I'm like, nope, we wanted a square. You did not give us a square.
Yeah.
So it's really
kind
tough.
Of robot.
So we're winding down here. Your turn. Ask me something.
Ask you something.
What do you want to know about me or Rising Tide Landscapes? You're completely on the spot.
So I've seen the video as to why Rising Tides, and I'm not going to lie, like that resonated with me like big time. I was
cool.
Like, wow, like this is cool. So I think my biggest question for you, and there's a correct answer for this.
Okay.
How big do you want this to be?
Big enough that it's still under control and we can maximize the lives of as many people. Yeah, I think that's the answer. I mean, as big as it can get while still staying true to all the core values. If that's 5 employees, that's our number. If that's 250 employees, that's our number. As long as those core principles that make Rising Tide can stay in place, that's how big I'd want it to be.
So I don't know the answer to this question. What are the core values?
The core values are, so the name Rising Tide Landscapes basically comes from a JFK quote where he said, a rising tide lifts all ships. He was talking about economy. We're talking about community and kind of quality of life within the company. We want to be a safe place to work. We want to be a clean place to work. We want to be a healthy place to work. We want the guys to be making top dollar in the industry. We want to be training people to be doing things our way and the right way. That long-term warranty means we've got to do things right the first time. And so we're doing that. And it's a process. We're 60, 90 days in, still growing, still putting a lot of these key elements in place. But that's one major core value, is to be an employee-centric company. And people go, no, the customer's always right. I get it. But companies like Starbucks have figured out, well, actually, if you have happy employees, guess what they make? Happy customers.
Yes.
So that's really the baseline of my company model.
I love
treat the guys right.
Yeah,
right?
Treat the guys right.
I've been around enough construction sites to know that not everybody gets treated right. I've seen a lot of guys not get paid, a lot of guys get injured, a lot of guys. Another reasons why I'm licensed, bonded, and insured. Like if, heaven forbid, there's an accident on my job, I want that family taken care of. I don't want to be like, well, I was Dan in a van and I'll see you later.
Yep. Dan in a van. I haven't heard that
Chuck
one.
in the truck,
like
Dan in the van.
Same concept.
There's more. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I hope this is something we can do again.
Yes.
In 5 years, and we can watch this and maybe comment on it.
Absolutely.
See how we did.
We just set the goal, write it down, and we'll make it happen.
Okay. Siri?
Manifest it.
No. Awesome. Thanks, man.